And the next plenary talk is by Sarah Barber from the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Science. So thank you so much for coming.
Wake up. You can do it quickly.
Can I also say something? Because Stephanie and I ran a quick calculation on our registration numbers, and I want to maybe mention that this conference then makes a big contribution to this university and maybe to Spain, because we have 17% women here in the audience, which is a different number than was projected earlier.
Right.
And I think this is also interesting to you, Sarah, because you're the EABE, the European Academy of Wind Energy Diversity Committee Chair, and you do a lot of activities to encourage women to actually come into our field and contribute.
And one of them is standing here. Hopefully saying something good. Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks very much for the invitation to talk here. I'm really happy to be able to talk about yet some more grand challenges and even a grand vision today. And my name is Sarah Barber. I lead the Wind Energy Innovation Division at the Eastern Switzerland University of Applied Sciences. That's obviously in Switzerland. I'm an aerodynamicist at heart, actually, and my research goes into the direction of aerodynamics of rotor blades, but also of mountainous terrain in Switzerland. It's kind of an obvious thing to do. But we've been going in the direction of digitalization recently, which basically means anything to do with data, data management, data engineering, data sharing. And this is why I'm now talking about a grand vision of wind energy digitalization. I co-lead IEA Wind Task 43. I think yours is 48 and ours is 43. And that's on digitalization. So first of all, I'll talk to you a little bit about digitalization, and then why do we need this thing called a grand vision at all, what that actually is, how we can implement it, and at the end I'm going to try to think about how digitalization is important for you, for airborne wind. So I invite you all to, while I'm talking, to have a little think. How can what I'm saying be taken over into what you're doing? And I'm going to have some ideas at the end, but maybe you can help me to add better ideas on afterwards. So thank you. So first of all, who knows what digitalization is? Like, what is that word? What does it actually mean? You don't have to tell me, but who has a feeling that they actually know what it might mean? Yeah, not many people. Some people. Okay, there's this word in English called digitization, right? And there's another word called digitalization, and they're completely different, as you might not know. And so digitalization is actually about exploiting the full value of data. We all have a load of data. I challenge you to think of an activity that you do that doesn't involve using or creating data, like literally at work. Maybe when you're going hiking or something, yeah, but at work. So we all do things with data. It can be data analysis, it can be creating AI-based systems, decision support tools, any type of design activity. And how do we get from digitization to digitalization? Well, this picture shows that quite nicely. So on the left, we have digitization, and that's literally turning information into ones and zeros. I'm making it digital. But then we've got this whole process to go through in order to actually use that in any way. And so we go through managing the data, storing it, analyzing it, creating new ideas from it. And that's what digitalization is, right at the end of this process, actually doing something useful with the data. Why is this important for wind energy? This is just a picture. This is a picture from NREL, where we sort of thought about what different aspects of digitalization would be important for wind energy. So, for example, you see a drone inspecting the blade. You see other measurements going on that wind turbine. You see a nacelle-mounted LiDAR, and all that data goes together onto a server, which is probably on the cloud these days. This picture here is supposed to be... Actually, how do I point in the best way? Don't know. Anyway, never mind. It's supposed to be a digital twin there on the right. And then we've got a person who is obviously a woman who is using an iPad to make decisions in real time. But why do we need this thing called a grand vision? Well, we all know, luckily we do actually all know about the grand challenges now, thanks to Joachim's presentation. And we have the grand challenges in the digitalization of wind energy paper. I think he mentioned it on one of his slides briefly. and it was published last year. And the very, very basic, quick conclusion of this paper is there are 3 areas where we have challenges to fully exploit the value of data. One is data itself, so how do we actually structure and manage the data? And this is very computer science, kind of geeky engineering area. How do we describe and structure the data? The second one is culture, like how can organizational culture foster digitalization? Maybe, I mean, most of you will work within an organization. They have a certain culture. So what are the values of the organization? Do they like sharing data, sharing information? Do you feel under pressure to share and to collaborate? Or is that encouraged? That's the culture. And the next one is co-opetition, which isn't a typo. It's actually a combination of cooperation and competition. So it's about companies working with and against each other for mutual benefit. So I think Bluetooth is always the example that's given where that was developed through this type of co-opetition. Can wind energy organizations use co-opetition to actually benefit the industry as a whole? So it's quite interesting, yeah. I hope you think it's quite interesting. I do. So how do we actually address these, right? So the paper came to this conclusion. We've got all these challenges, but what do we do next? And there's loads of activities underway. If you're interested, please come and talk to me. So we have IEA Wind Task 43, but we also have Wind Europe Digitalisation Task Force, the European Academy of Wind Energy Digitalisation Committee, many more. But what's holding all these things together? Right? So everybody goes off and works in their little bubble. You probably know about how that works, and it's difficult to look outside of the bubble. And so this idea of a grand vision is to say, well, why don't we all have the same vision? This vision is just my invention, which I invented for you, by the way. So it's not anything that's happening right now, but it's just my suggestion for how all these things could be brought together. So the first part of this vision, there's 2 parts. The first part is value creation. So I imagine a world in which data analysts spend 80% of their time carrying out value-creating activities rather than 80% of their time data wrangling. So it's kind of common knowledge. If you Google it, you see many articles about this thing. It's kind of common knowledge that people spend 80% of their time messing around with data until they can get it in some format that they can actually use it. And then they spend 20% of the time doing something valuable with it. That means getting insights, making decisions. And so the first vision is to say, let's turn that around. If we actually share the non-value creating tasks and the data structures, we can all do that quickly because we're all doing it the same and it's interchangeable. And then we can spend 80% of our time on this bit that we spend 20% on at the moment. So that's vision, that's the first part. And the second one is I call flourishing. So it's a world in which the wind energy sector represents a diverse, inclusive, barrier-free digital environment in which everyone can flourish. I'm going to explain a little bit about that in the next slides. So first of all, I'm going back to the value-creating one. I'm going to talk about why and how, and then I'll talk about the flourishing why and how. So the value-creating thing, why? So as part of the Grand Challenges paper, we did a survey with about 50 experts and interviews, and we asked them, what are your main challenges and opportunities regarding digitalization? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but the main challenges were data accessibility, culture and change management, and then knowledge sharing and standardized communication. And the opportunities were data accessibility, model development, through this sharing that we're hopefully going to improve, and communication and open source. As well as that, we did another survey last year. You don't need to read all that in detail, but we did a survey about pain points. So we asked people in the industry, what's your pain? What are your main frustrations in your everyday work? And I've circled the 3 most important ones. So this is actually showing a load of different pain points. And on the right-hand side, we're showing the relative frequency of occurrence of this pain. And so the main 3 areas were data management, lack of data management tools, lack of accessible metadata, that's data which describes data, and then a lack of data and metadata standards. So the conclusion is people are lacking these data standards and metadata management tools. The general conclusion is we need to share more. It's quite easy. How do we do that though? I've been trying to get people to share data and knowledge for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's very difficult. So I'm going to show you some examples of what we're trying to do. One thing is that we've formed a wind energy community group at the Research Data Alliance, which is an international organization committed to improving data sharing. And the goal of this group is to improve this so-called fairness. Fair is quite a cool word because it kind of, the meaning is also important, but it's actually an acronym for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So the aim of this group is to get together and actually improve the fairness of wind energy data. If anyone's interested in this, we have a launch on the 16th of May. There's a plenary meeting online, so please get in touch if you're interested in that. What else are we doing? We are developing an ontology publishing portal. Probably most of you are not computer scientists, but ontologies are important for describing how data is structured and also what the relationships are between different terms. And if you don't share how your data is structured and described, everyone does it in a different way. And also, if you don't, you can also develop a shared vision for how it's going to be structured. But then if you don't publish that, then no one's going to know about it. And that's what people do, right? They get together in these IEC standards groups, and then they don't publish what they've done, or they do, but they do publish it, but it's not accessible. So if you have some sort of machine-readable format, you can publish your ontologies so people can actually use them. So we've got an example here of a wind turbine blade damage ontology, where we're trying to describe the different types of damage, but then also how the different aspects relate to each other. Another example is a project that I've started called We Do Wind. And We Do Wind is actually about bringing together people, data, and solutions. So it's trying to say, we're trying to get people to create solutions to the most pressing problems of the world using data. And we're trying to create this mutual benefit, which I mentioned before about when I was talking about competition. So on the left, you've got asset owners, so the people owning wind turbines. They have a load of data, right? It's coming off the turbine all the time. But they don't necessarily have the state-of-the-art analytics to know what to do with that data. On the right-hand side, you have the researchers, students, data scientists who are desperate for data, especially when they develop data-driven models. And so we thought, why not bring these two parties together through this idea of challenges where both parties benefit from each other. And it's not just a traditional hackathon challenge type thing, it's actually an ecosystem. So there's loads of challenges going on all the time, and people are learning from each other, and people are actually sharing their results with each other. So it's an example of a couple of the projects we've got going on. And so yeah, that was the examples of the value creating. And then getting to the flourishing. So the flourishing is about diversity and inclusion. Why? Well, we've already heard a little bit about why today. This was a Global Wind Energy Council survey from 2020 that concluded that women make up 21% of the global wind energy workforce, but actually that's including administrative staff, which is kind of crazy. So it's not the technical people. The technical people are much lower, and 65% of them perceive gender-related barriers. But it's not just gender; it's also other aspects of diversity. There's many studies and web pages and articles about the benefits of diversity. It's kind of common knowledge now that if we have diverse groups, we can be more innovative and more successful. So that's the reason. How? So. Thank you for mentioning that I chair the European Academy of Wind Energy Diversity Committee. So one thing that I'm trying to do in that committee, also alongside all these other nice people, you may know some of them, is we're trying to develop tools that you can use, or people can use, and actually help them. We're trying to increase the visibility of underrepresented groups, and we're trying to then improve diversity and inclusion at ERWA, which is interesting. You go to a general meeting and there's 2 women from 100. And so we're trying to do several things to actually improve that. We're starting with a survey, for example, to try to work out how to help and make sure that we've heard everybody's voices. The other thing is We Do Wind. I'm giving We Do Wind again as an example, because the idea of We Do Wind is that actually anyone can participate. So it's not an IEA task. If you want to participate in an IEA task, your country has got to pay money, as you might know, and it's an organisation which requires, you have to get accepted, you have to get into it. Many other collaborations, you have to get into an EU project, you can't get in unless you've been in the field for 10 years and you know the right people. It's very difficult to collaborate. Even in my experience in Switzerland, Switzerland's not a wind country, it's very difficult to get collaboration started. The idea of We Do Wind, like anybody with an internet connection and email address can take part. If they feel like taking part in a challenge run by a large international company, if they have some good ideas, then they'll get heard. And so that's also a way that we're trying to achieve this flourishing part. Another thing which I'm not involved in, but I thought I'd mention it anyway, is a thing called Windclusion you may have heard of. So that's organised by these companies here, and it's trying to get companies and people together to work out how to include everyone in a wind energy career. The general idea of that is to say the data scientists, all the people who know about digitalisation, because that's becoming more important, they're going to go to a different industry if we're not diverse and inclusive, because it's not an attractive industry. So it's about saying, how do we make our industry attractive for a diverse range of people? Okay, so that was those aspects, and then bringing it all together, we at IEA Task 43 have got a bit of a vision about how we can do that, and it's about what we want to do is develop a holistic, human-centered wind energy open innovation ecosystem. The blue bits are people, the green bits are infrastructure. So in the middle we have a wind energy data and code portal, which is open. But that can only work if we have the top part, which is the ontology publishing portal. And then to the left of that, we have the people. So we have a load of people all working together or next to each other who we're trying to bring in to put their ontologies on the portal so that we can use those to describe the data. And then on the left middle, we have the whole community of people who have open data and open code. There's certain guidelines that are being developed about how to actually publish your code and your data in the right way, and they're going to then go into this portal. On the right-hand side, we have what We Do Win now, which is this knowledge and data sharing community through challenges, where we take the data, we work on challenges using the data, and then we improve the code. At the bottom, we also have other people who are not taking part in challenges, but are somehow using the data by themselves. And we already have this kind of infrastructure set up, so we have a platform that we're using to get this community together. So I'd really like to have Airborne Wind as part of this community. And that's going to move me on to this question about digitalisation and airborne wind. So this picture is supposed to be a bit of a joke, like how can you bring AI together with airborne wind? That was the result of me using DAL-E to try to make a picture of a vision of digitalisation and airborne wind in the future. I've purposely put my title over that strange six-bladed wind turbine at the top. That's quite an interesting experience. Why I think digitalisation is interesting for airborne wind, your industry is relatively new compared to the traditional wind energy industry, and which means that you can hopefully start more open and innovative. We're not fighting a uphill battle, not as much as in the traditional wind energy industry. I think there's still lots of R&D needed, as far as I understand, although maybe my opinion on that will change after today, I don't know. No, I think there is, which means there's lots of chances to accelerate this R&D if you have the right culture, for example. I don't think standardization is so ingrained as it is in the traditional wind energy industry, which means you have the chance to start the right way. So don't start by making a 500-page IEC document, which is a PDF, which is not machine readable. Start by taking modern technologies now. As far as I understand, there's a load of new startups growing, and so again, there's a chance to get the culture of the organisation right from the start. So some concluding thoughts. Digitalisation is about exploiting the full value of data. It's about computer science and data structures. It's about how domain experts can communicate with computer scientists. And a large part is about people, communication, and culture. And that's not anything to be scared of. So I hope that you can think about the things that I've been talking about, and maybe you've got some ideas about how airborne wind as a whole could become more innovative and open and therefore accelerate its development. Just a couple of things at the end. We're actually running a survey. I would be really, really, really happy if you would take 5 minutes to fill out this, the one on the left, a survey. It's about how organizational culture can foster digitalization and data sharing. It's really important for our research to know what's going on in organizations. And the one on the right is our Task 43 meeting. If you're interested in these things that I've been talking about, you can actually come and meet us in Switzerland on June 17th and 19th, or it's online as well. We have a hybrid option. Otherwise, just contact me on my email address here, and I'll be around today if anyone wants to talk to me. So thank you.